My name is Ellen. I'm the outreach director for the Fringe. What that means is that I put together these panels, our other workshops in the spring. I also throw fun parties and our office hours. I also run our Fringe Scholarship program, so if anybody has specific questions about that, we have a panel about it later where our committee will be here answering questions too. But if you're like, what is that? Should I go to that panel? Talk to me. And basically, I just wanted to thank our venue, the Complex Theater, and Monica and Ross, who is running around trying to help us out with that. Our staff, Matt Kamimura, who will be coming and taking photos of us. We are being recorded. Hello, universe. And Alex Prem, who's our event coordinator, who's also been checking everyone in and everything like that. Basically, all of these sessions will be recorded and posted online afterwards. Also, all of our other panels from all the past years are online and recorded. So if you're like, I want to get a jump start on January, you can. It's all there for you. One more thing is that we just opened our Fringe Scholarship application yesterday, and that will be open until January 6th, and that's really exciting. And another thing is that we instituted a new thing this year. We're doing monthly office hours, pre-Fringe. I don't remember the November date, but I hope to see you there. If you have not signed up already for our emails, please get on our email list. That's where we send out all this information. I'm done talking, and I'm going to ask you guys to talk now. Can you give me your kind of overview of your participation in the Fringe, but also maybe a description of the show that you wrote or co-wrote, since I think you guys are both co-writers, for the 2018 Fringe.
Yeah. Hi guys, my name is Tinks Lovelace. I'm a writer-director. I've been at Fringe for 3 years. This was my 3rd year. It's the only show that I really like that I did. I co-wrote a piece called Othello and Otis. It was a dreamscape about white apathy towards the African American community. My co-writer was a woman of color. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here today. Thanks for having me.
I'm Kelley Pierre. This last year was actually my first year at Fringe, but I worked with a group called Lucid Dramatics, and that was their 4th season. And so I'm a writer, actor, and the 3 of us wrote, acted in, directed, and produced Larry T's Loves Hamlet, Loves Ophelia. So it was a modern 3-person roommate spin on Hamlet, and we had a I guess non-specific gender identifying Hamlet and some twists that were more reflective of today, I suppose, and an interesting twist on Ophelia's death. It involved a foot bath as opposed to drowning in a river and things like that. So yeah, we created in that last year and got nominated for a handful of things and won Best Ensemble.
So can you guys kind of give me an overview of your writing process? Where do you kind of start to think of an idea, and once you have that idea, where do you go from there?
Sure. So I guess the very beginning of it is whatever that like nugget concept that makes you excited, and for me it's always something to process, or it's more of a question that needs to be answered. And then for the 3 of us writing together, we actually created a shared Google Drive document and went in, and we started off very much like, hey, here's an idea for a scene, and one of us would be like, yeah, I want to take a crack at that, and we'd do a first draft, and then we read it together, talk about it, and the other one would be like, hey, I have some rewrite ideas, can I go in? And they're like, yeah, sure, go for it. So, and then near the end it became gluing all the pieces together, but we just had one thing to look at. We sometimes saved old iterations so we wouldn't lose everything, but it was pretty much like, hey, I trust you, go in and write over what I wrote and make it into something that not one of us could have created. So
yeah, I also wrote with a partner, so it was very collaborative. We both really wanted to write this piece for very different reasons. Mine was because I was upset with the white apathy that I saw that was going on within my community, and my writing partner, her piece was her reason for it. She's not here. She's amazing. I wish she was here. Hers was just a love letter to her community and so it was the same coin, but different sides, opposite sides. It was very collaborative. It started with conversations. The whole piece came out of we were both in at coffee shops, just getting seeing what's gone on in the news and getting really upset about it. And then it came to a point where we sat down to write it. We did have multiple in-person sessions, but it was also great to have it online, Skype sessions, FaceTime. Also shared documents, great. Google Docs is awesome for that because it also saves everything. We threw out ideas, kept things, brought them back. I'm a really big fan of putting the script up on the wall in my apartment so that I can see it. I work visually, so see it. We also had different, I had a singing, spoken word. I had Obama's speech come in, and so it was very easy for me to move certain scenes around because I could see the whole picture and the journey. So I would be a huge advocate for putting it up on a wall.
So in case you guys are first-time Fringe producers, writing for the Fringe is really different because you have this thing called a 15-minute load-in and a 15-minute load-out. So you have to forgo a lot of your technical elements, a lot of your costumes, a lot of your props. Everything has to be really simplified. And I just want some advice from you guys. How do you deem what in your script is important to have physically? And if it isn't, have you rewritten it in a way that makes it easier? And could you describe one of those moments?
I'll go first. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel that any props really, or hand props are fine, smaller hand props are great, but any big stage pieces are a no-go. But I also I do mine at 3 clubs, which has multiple entrances and exits, and it's not necessarily a traditional space like this is. So these traditional spaces allow for a little bit more stage prep, whereas at 3 clubs I felt no. So then I'm like, well, how am I going to make this world interesting or bring the audience into my world, right? If I'm just doing a blank stage, it's not the prettiest thing to look at. So I decided to dress my actors and my characters in really beautiful and interesting clothing. I think you can use that to create stage pieces really, really well. Also, I had people in and amongst the audience if we needed to use a chair. I really love that. I think the audience is a really pivotal part of our theatre. It's the only thing that really makes theatre different from film. So let's really use them, right? Let's really use them. So I use them a lot. So to make a pretty stage piece, I had 15 minutes. I had my assistant producer put forest green leaves all around everywhere. That took less than 5 minutes to there, 5 minutes to go, and that for me was very much the wealth of America, the prosperity of America in terms of my abstract dreamscape. But yeah, that's how I did it. I just put something very simple on the stage. You feel it straight away. But it's not moving all these stage props in, because I'm not a huge fan of, and you guys have more of a traditional set, but I'm not a huge fan of watching actors move things in between stuff in the blacks, as soon as the lights go down, you see them moving. That for me breaks the illusion of these beautiful, they've spent 30 minutes or 10 minutes creating these characters for you as an audience member, so seeing them move stuff for me just breaks the illusion of theatre.
I guess twofold of that question. First of all, at least I believe whenever you're first writing something, don't let what it's going to be stop you at all. Don't quell your enthusiasm for the understanding that you are going to have to load in this set in 15 minutes, because there will be a way to do it. One of my creative partners, Caitlin Schiller, she really wanted a bathtub so bad. She just she's like, I feel like that's Ophelia's death. for us is having this bathtub that is somehow this threat in the upper right hand corner or something of the stage, and we're just like, okay, this bathtub is important. And we thought about it, and we were like, do we buy one? How do we transport it? And we got really wrapped up in this, and by the end we're just like, oh, we could just do like a little bucket trough for this moment where we need water on stage. And it worked and we had bath salts that, and whatever reason that came out in a lot of the reviews, people were like, I could smell the bath salts, and that really got me. And so it's crazy the way that you'll get something in your show because you let yourself dream big in the beginning. And then the other element, because we had a full apartment was our set, and the big thing for us was delegating the load in. Everyone knew exactly what their job was, and simple things to flesh it out that make it feel full that really aren't that hard. We had things like unpacked cardboard boxes was a big part of our set, that we could just throw them together in the corners and it created a little bit more texture. And then a rug was a huge solution for us, because we're just like, we've got, the space comes with a couch, we've got books and stuff, but what is going to make this space cohesive without a full backdrop? And it's like, stick it on a rug, and now it's an apartment. So,
and all of our venues have different things that they can offer. So like Three Clubs obviously is in a bar setting, so there's not really like these couches or these things available. And there's a whole panel if you're curious about how do I find a venue that has the needs that I want. There is one in the Fringe Zone. There's like 30, 28. There's a lot of venues that have lots of different things to offer. There's some that have things for aerial silks.
Yeah.
There's things for basically anything you want to do. So
sorry to interrupt, but I would really suggest going to the venue that you like and watching a show there and seeing how they use that space, because you could use it in the same way or you could use it completely differently. And when I wrote my show, I knew the space that I wanted to write it in, so I didn't have that thing of like, oh, I've got to like edit this down already. I'm like, oh, what can I enhance more because of this space? What can I use more? What's gonna make the dream and the vision come alive more in this space? So, and that in its way really helped a lot of variables in the script.
Do either of you guys hire designers, either costume and props or lighting, sound, anything like that?
In terms of costume prop kind of realm, I feel like my creative team, we all have that sort of thing. We're not like that we're not professionals per se, but we're enthusiasts, so we tend to do that on our own. And then lights, pretty much we have at the Broadwater, our stage manager was amazing, and she just, when we did our tech day, it was, how about this? We'd look at it and be like, cooler, warmer, and she'd just give us options and made it so we almost, she made that process so we could navigate it, I suppose, on our own. But.
Yeah, because I directed mine as well. I love to do everything, so I didn't want to hire anyone. It was very much collaborative between my writer and I. I didn't hire a set dresser. I do a lot of that work. I'm a visual artist, so I do a lot of that work myself anyway. So I'd prefer for me, the vision is still mine then. In terms of the costumes, I had something in my head that I thought was going to be so beautiful, and then I got to dress, and all the because I had an all-female cast, they were in it, and they were saying these incredibly. So the opening line to my piece was the nature of the hatred between black and white, and it's a James Baldwin piece. So it was saying some very huge statements, and I had these girls in like gold and really glittery things, and I just. A dress was just awful because I hated everything that they were wearing because it undercut a lot of what they were saying. So in that moment, you have to know I just threw it all out and we went with something else. But it really does. It leads down to always editing and always allowing to, even if it's the dress rehearsal, making sure that the vision is what you want it to be, and you allow that elasticity is really important. Elasticity of mind for the space, for the costumes, and all that kind of stuff.
So it sounds like you really like to focus on costumes to kind of
hugely.
tell the story. And what do you think outside of the script itself? What do you like to focus on to really ground it? Is it like your set?
I see. I think my impulse would be to lean towards. Honestly, it's like pick what element you want to be excited. Like, don't have all of them be really important. I think it would depend on the piece. But if, like, I love the idea of a show that's a bare stage with beautiful costumes and simple lighting, or so I guess as long as there's feels like there should be one or the others, but I can't say I'm particular to, like, I always go for this or that.
I think the piece it really depends on the piece, you know, like what the work is, and allowing it to be slightly more abstract, or if it's a real life scenario. Like, their rug was so gorgeous, and it took you out of just a black floor, you know, like you're on a theater and it just felt like you're in their apartment. So yeah.
Something I like to bring in, we have a spring panel, which is online if you want to watch it, but you can also come to one in the spring called How to Tech Your Fringe Show, where our staff lighting and staff sound designer, Brandon Baruch and Corwin Evans, speak to how to, when you've written this huge show that has a million technical elements, how to do it.
And that's
do it
so
yourself.
useful, because it's not a lot of time, and knowing how to do it is,
One of my favorite things that I actually was emailing them about this panel, asking, like, what is one thing that they're really interested in kind of giving to you in the writing process, is that, like Kelley said earlier, like, you can dream big and edit down. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that I think is a really special thing is kind of choose what that element is for you, and you can focus on 1 to 2 things, but not a million things.
Yeah, because they get overwhelmed. Like, you've got a stage manager who's doing how many shows a night? Like, a lot.
Like 8.
8, and you only have 1 or 2 techs, you know, and so
An hour tech
if you're lucky. And so you can't go too crazy with lighting. You can't,
unless you hire a designer that can do that.
Yeah, and just focuses mainly on that. And maybe your piece is all about, like, light, and that could, I want to see it.
There was a beautiful piece last year, and also it comes with your venue. You know, there was a beautiful piece last year where they had these backdrops that they hung, and they lit the backdrops, and there was dancers behind the backdrops. And you can do that, but you have to be smart about where you're finding your venue, what kind of, that venue didn't have a lot of shows, so it didn't have that lead in and lead out time. And it probably had a different cost associated with it because of that. So,
and also that show, I think I remember that, they're not then going to suddenly bring on an apartment scene halfway through it. You know, they're going to understand that this is an abstract space with lights and silks, and, you know, I think that's the worry when you're continually trying to create all these different spaces in one place. It gets a little overwhelming for the stage manager and the actors and everyone trying to make that happen.
Can you guys describe the madness of a 20-minute load-in or 15 minutes or whatever you had? And how do you approach that? Like, you had 3 people, right, helping with that? Yeah. What did those 3 people do in that time?
So we had a specific way that we took one car. We had a specific way of loading up the car. We would park in the loading space outside the Broadwater and wait on the sidewalk. We pulled everything in its designated boxes to the sidewalk for that extra little step. Your stage manager comes out and flags you in once it's go time, and sometimes you get a little extra time, but you can't bank on it, so it's like you get the hand and you have 15 minutes before you're walking on stage to perform this show. So it's like, so basically for us, we had, I think one person was in charge of boxes, one person was in charge of blowing up balloons, because we had some of that going on. So yeah, delegating, I guess, was the big thing, and we never missed anything because everyone knew exactly what they had to do, and yeah.
Yeah, so for my 15 minutes, asked my assistant producer to kindly put leaves everywhere, all over the stage. My actors just warming up. They put on some very minimal, like they all came in makeup and stuff beforehand. Asked them to do a movement rehearsal in the space, just because something might have changed for safety reasons, like a little 5 to 10 minute movement rehearsal. We had a few movement pieces, and then sort of me madly running around asking if everyone's okay and if they've got everything they need. Ask the tech if there's any cues with the tech human, if there are any cue issues from last time, this time, to just try and make those work at all. And yeah, then just a tiny slither of a breath of like, let's connect, let's ground, because we're about to say some cool stuff and do this. And that's what's important, right? But it's really important just before they open the house, for me and my process, to have everyone just grounded and breathing together.
And then what is it like for that, like you finish your show, everybody's like, yay, I want to come talk to you.
Yeah.
How do you say, I gotta go break down my set really quick, and how do you kind of navigate that process?
Well,
I'm probably one of them.
We love you.
Yeah, we never had much of a problem, because it was pretty much, we bowed, we told everyone, like, please leave us a review if you enjoyed it, and catch these other Fringe shows and support, and then we just turned around and started ripping apart. We broke the illusion entirely and started ripping our set out of the space. So we never really, sometimes people would want to talk, mostly they wanted to help, which was lovely. But it was pretty clear signal of like, oh, and now you're, I kind of like that though, because it's such a clear sign of this is Fringe, and there is sort of a charm to that, to me, that it's like you could see a show, you could see a fully living show, and then now we got to get out because the next show is coming in. So
yeah, similar, like everyone's sort of like trying to talk to you, and yeah, I just usually like, I love you, I'm ignoring you, you know, I have to clean everything. Like my assistant producer cleaning up all the leaves with her hands.
Yeah, that would
oh,
be.
girl. Yeah. And some of my really good girlfriends and guy friends would come and clean the leaves up, which was really helpful. But yeah, it's just sort of like, oh, we can't talk to you right now. We'll talk to you like on the other side of this door in like 10 minutes.
And you ask them to meet you on the street too. Like we'll be outside to talk after we load out. And
the streets are pretty full during the Fringe, between like the 55-minute and 5-minute out on between each hour, because you have these shows coming out and everybody hugging and saying hi and then going into their next.
It's lovely. Yeah.
So if you say, like, for you said that you guys get in costume before. Do you guys tend to do that at the venue? Do you tend to drive in your costumes? How do you make sure that your costumes stay nice? And do people tend to, like, do makeup beforehand? Do they do it there? How do you kind of navigate that aspect, which can sometimes be tough if that's an important part of your show?
Yeah. So hair and makeup and all those things done, and then just like sweats or you know, tracksuit on while you're doing all this stuff. And then, you know, usually we have a cue for costume, just because some of the costumes were longer pieces, because I like that kind of like long sort of like that kind of feeling on stage. So yeah, you can't really move leaves with a long dress on. So yeah, then they would get on those. Yeah, you know, your makeup, it is 15 minutes of madness. So you know, you get a little like sweaty, but it's you know, you get used to it. This is the thing, is hopefully you get to a point where everyone has their designated thing. So if each one is just doing that one thing, it's not overwhelming, but it's about delegating like these 15 things to break them down so they are manageable.
And I would say, like, if you have a lovely director who is giving you time as an actor in Fringe to, like, breathe beforehand, awesome. The way that I kind of went about it was assuming basically that I needed to be ready to perform before I got in the car to go to the space. So that was backstage time for me. All my makeup was done. The minimal amount of my costume was, and part of how we chose costumes was things that weren't too high maintenance, because we did have some costume changes, and like I had a basic little black dress that I had the more colorful pieces just went over to signify a different day. And yeah, but that was hugely helpful, just to have that mindset of you are ready to walk on stage before you get in your car.
And you did some of those costume changes on stage, right? Or like you would throw like a sweater or things like that, like, or did you guys tend to go off stage to do things like
I
that?
think we pretty much went off stage, but there was, I believe, Caitlin had a change it within the sleeping bag or something like she crawled into a sleeping bag to go to bed for the night, and then like took something off in that motion or whatnot.
What a wild thing to be able to do.
We were fairly ambitious, really, in terms of the amount of detail with costume and set, but it was all small. Like, it was all small things to deal with. There wasn't any like anything that needed two people to carry, or any costume change that needed another person to help you. So that made it so we could probably do a bit more of those bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So, this is all really exciting stuff to think about in May or in April when you're kind of starting your technical process. When people are writing, and I know that both of you have said, like, write big and then edit down, who do you kind of trust to help you make those decisions, and how do you start building your creative team during this time period?
I think it really depends on the show. If you're doing, last year I did something that was very my voice, very me, very new. I was a new writer, so I wanted to protect my voice a little bit and not let it be open too much. But then I got to a point with my performers, I'm very collaborative, so I said to them, okay, this is what I've written, now tell me what you think. And I really try and create a space of like allowing everyone to tell me exactly what they think, because it's going to be them ultimately on stage saying it, right? In terms of this year, because it was a show that was, subject matter was so delicate, and I was a white woman with a cast of African American women, from the beginning it was very collaborative. I was learning so much. There were things that, you know, weren't okay, we're okay. It was just very open dialogue. They needed to come on board with that straight away. My writing partner and I, she's a woman of color, straight away from the ground up. So that was very,
How did you and Francesca meet?
Yeah. We met at Fringe probably we didn't. I teach, sometimes I do master classes in writing at either incarcerated facilities. So I do it at Rikers. I've done it in Rikers in New York, and there's a few other facilities around here. I also do it LGBT community and some other places, and I needed a teaching assistant at the time, and I met Francesca through that type of work. So we're very, very socially conscious, and through this work that we were doing, we were continually talking about race. She was telling me how she navigates the world, and I was telling her, well, the white condition is a little bit more known, so you don't need to tell someone how white people are. But you know, we were talking, and through that, I have her in a lot of things that I do, because you know, I think when you feel a kindred spirit creatively, you don't want to let them go. I spend so long trying to find. We all do, but people who understand you, I'm like, do everything with me now. So she's been in all of my shows, and this show in particular, it was just a time for us to both be like, okay, this is what we want to talk about, this is what we talk about for at coffee, or what we talk about online, or you send me this article, I'll send you this article, whatever. So this is now our friendship on a platform, really.
And then was the show you did 3 years ago, I forget what it was.
There's Theatre and Chill, Shakespeare
and Chill.
Yeah,
Did you guys work together previous to that, or was it just the first?
No, that was, she had volunteered with me before that.
Oh, but not in a like performance setting, or also in a performance setting?
No, not in a performance setting. She was my teaching assistant. Yeah, but in the way that I teach, I'll do all the writing on the board, and I need a teaching assistant to act out some of the lines, and then we'll write the script collaboratively in my classes. So it's kind of, she was performing, but never in this type of environment, like a French environment.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is if you find people that you're excited to work with, hang on to them, because it's so, at least running in the more type A direction that I do, the idea of even writing with other people and having that be joyous and not be stressful and not be like something where you're clamoring for what you want out of the process. And, you know, you'll attract those people, I guess, that you identify with. With my team, we all met in college, actually. So like 2010 or 11. And so my team is, the other two are Caitlin Schiller and Peyton Ackerman. And Caitlin became a really close friend when she transferred to my school. And I started writing in college, and Peyton was a grad student, and he ran the staged readings. So I met him that way. And then they met each other separately and got married. And then we all had a long-distance friendship since college when I was living in New York. And then they said, get over here and be with us. And so we all now live together and and create theater together. So that's our little love story. But yeah, and hopefully when you attract those kind of people, the nice thing is that you can be a natural check and balance for each other. When you're dreaming too big and can't even see anything else besides this one big thing that came to mind, then hopefully you have that partner who has the gentle, like, hey, but there are other options, and you can do that for each other. So
that's really important, is having someone that will just give you all honest feedback. Really, really important. And very similar. I love collaborating. I think just because, you know, I think more than one mind is way more powerful and important than just your one mind, as long as you have a vision and you know what it is you want to say.
If you were brand new to LA and you had never been to the Fringe before, and you needed to find somebody, you're like, I have this idea, I want to do it, this is what I'm writing, what would be your first step, do you think, into finding your way into this community?
A lot of these things, I remember when I first did Fringe, I did a lot of panels, but there's the LAFPI, which is a great Los Angeles Females Playwrights initiative. Just being really vocal about your work, really, and whether it's through your social media or any of that stuff, you know. This is what I'm working on. Is anyone interested? Does anyone want to sit down with me and go over this? I know that social media is really great if you want to DM someone. Just DM them. What's the worst thing? They're going to say no to you. Like, come on. You can handle no. You know? Like, DM them. Say, hey, I would love to. I've seen you, or I love your work, or whatever. But these panels are really great. Finding like-minded people. The Fringe is a great community, and that's what I was really happy about when I first came to LA and being within Fringe was... LA is so spread out, you really feel like there's no center and there's no, just even geographically. But with the Fringe community, we're like, it's a bunch of crazy cool people caring about similar things that you care about too. So yeah, that's.
And there's so many opportunities for, like, there's stage reading setups and all. And the nice thing with Fringe for me is it helped me to get to know all these venues where theater is going on year round, and there are places that are doing stage readings every Tuesday of the week and if you can get involved or just start showing up to those, office hours has been a great way of, I know so many more creative minds just from melding and meeting each other there. So if you show up to these opportunities for artists on your level that are creating, you're going to start meeting people. And I'm in a show right now who the writer wrote a show for Fringe, and I was like, I loved your writing. I want to know your process. I want to know, and we became friends from the fact that I enjoyed his work so much. So we worry about, like, getting ourselves out there and getting people to want to do our thing, but if you do spend some time enjoying and loving what someone else is doing, you're going to make a really strong connection.
And some Fringe resources, just from this side of it, things that we've learned from best practices. Well, now we do have extended office hours once a month. I don't know when the November one is because I'm awful, but it's fine. But we're going to have one in November, December, January, February, and then we start in March with these things called office hours. They're networking events. People will come with, like, postcard in hand, ready to talk, even if they haven't fully written their show yet, giving that elevator pitch, getting feedback, meeting collaborators. And, like, it started out, like Macklin will attest to, 10 people in a bar, and now it's like 200 people in a bar. So it's really fun and exciting. There's Facebook groups if you're looking to connect with people on Facebook. I know some of the people weren't on the panel before this, or didn't hear these, but there's Hollywood Fringe and LA Theater. There's one that was created last year called HFF 18. There's Technical Theater Artists LA. There's women-focused theater groups. There's, I'm sure there's other focused theater groups. There's like a million, and people find that. And then if you're really looking for like resources as far as like where do people kind of get like a printer or things like this, we have this thing called a participant packet. We have last year's participant packet up currently, but that'll be updated in the spring for this year. But it has, you know, some typical tried and true things that people have recommended, and that's on our website.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff on the website, you guys. Like, just go and...
Like all these kids.
Yeah, and like also just emailing support, right?
Yep, we will answer, well, Dave will answer you as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Great. So I just want to kind of know, we've kind of like gotten through this process, but what would be like some like tips that you would give in this stage of the writing process? Where are you typically at, or where were you at last year in November, which feels like it's so early but also so late?
Yeah, we knew we were going to make something, and we had no idea what yet. I actually, I moved to LA, October 30th was my anniversary, so I've been here just a year. Thank you. So we're at the point right now where we're going to be making something. And it wasn't till December that the nugget of idea that happened was, what if Hamlet is actually a narcissist? What if this is sociopathic behavior and not some dude who is justifiably upset? And that was the first like nugget of thought that we had about it, and so we started kicking that around. But we actually didn't start writing till January. We booked our venue before we had a full script. So hopefully you can get your process before that, but it totally happens where you are not 100% ready when you are already making those like tangible steps of producing your show.
Yeah, very similar for us as well. I think I sort of said, okay, we have to have something by November. I think it was like November 15th or something. We had like maybe the opening act. I don't even know. Or we had the rough idea, the very, very rough structure. But it depends. Each year is kind of different. Like the year before that, I did have my rough before November. I think it just depends really on you know how comfortable and confident you are. I think with this show that I did last year, we were learning so much about what we were able to say, what we did want to talk about, that we were very, very careful with so much of it. But we definitely went to events and we're like, oh, we're doing this, oh, we've got this, and we don't even have a full script yet, and we don't have a cast. I mean, we went into 4 weeks to opening. I think we just had a cast and we had our first rehearsal. So, you know,
I mean,
living on the edge.
Yeah, a funny thing that was happened in our last panel is I asked a similar question, and one person that won best solo show said, I didn't have my script until 3 weeks before. But he was out there promoting and talking to people and ended up winning best solo show out of the awards. So it's different process for everyone.
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend like leaving everything to the last minute. It's not fun. So
but it does happen, and you're not going to die.
Yeah, it does happen. I think my first year in Fringe, I was very, very trying to be a very good student. So I did everything super early, and I had my script together and whatever. And then as they've gone on, I've gotten a little bit more lackluster with things.
So what would be like the number one nugget of advice you would give to a first-time producer at the Fringe? Or what was some advice that you heard and resonated with you? It doesn't have to be one, it could be 1 to 2, 3 things.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is like if it's your first year especially, like just throw something against the wall in terms of what you're expecting from the experience. I like get in it, because it's going to be it's going to be this next time around that you now know people, that you now, like, when you network, you're running into familiar faces and you're starting to be involved in this
You're on
community.
panels.
Yeah, well, and I'm in a different boat for sure because I was involved with people who've done it before. But yeah, it's this the first year is about getting the experience of what the heck is this, and I think giving yourself that grace makes it a lot less exhausting and just this overwhelming I don't know what's happening thing. And obviously there's all these tools. Matt Quinn has all these tools as well to help you navigate it as if you've done it before, as if you've had a throw at it before this first time. But yeah,
I'd say get really clear on your goals. What is it that you want, right? It doesn't have to be a huge goal. I think my first year was like put up a show that some people come to. Simple
good
goal.
first goal.
Yeah. And then they got more intense. Get really clear on your goal, and I would say to make sure every decision you make is to that goal. I think if you go in trying to make loads of money, I don't know, in your first year that seems a little overwhelming and slightly aggressive, but it's totally up to you guys. You know, do whatever you want with that. In terms of so have a goal. Be okay with the chaos of it all. Be okay with that chaos. It's Fringe. You've got 15 minutes to put up a whole set. Don't worry. Know that you're going to feel chaotic and it's fine. You're supposed to. Enjoy it. And the last thing I would really say is try and be just really open and kind to people in the Fringe community, and just know, like, you never know who your next collaborator is going to be. You never know who you're going to be on a panel with or on stage with in your next show. You know, you never know that. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the anxiety of, oh God, I've put so much on the line here. I'm trying to do all of this stuff. You know, you're trying to do it all so right and correct. And there's really no way of doing it other than just having a good time with the people around you.
and jumping on that, like, there's that element of, like, it's my first time, I need to get my thing out there, but be there to support. Like, when you go to these office hours, really, the way that I always go about, and because I'm introverted, I will get drained by the end of the night. So the thing that I started to do is anytime I was talking with someone, I thought, what is a question I can ask you that I'm interested in hearing your response in relationship to your show. So as opposed to just like, okay, you elevator pitch in my face and I'll elevator pitch in your face. See you later. Like, I don't remember your name. Like, what they're talking about, what's the most interesting thing I could ask you about it? And you'll get so much more joy out of this if you also are here to support, as opposed to just push your stuff out there.
And see shows. Like,
Yeah,
how
and
many,
that's part
how
of
many
it, yeah.
shows did you see, you think?
I
Like,
have no idea how many shows and
like a lot, right?
Yeah. That's
And I
a
write
huge part of it.
write reviews for people,
Yes,
you know, and
definitely.
know where they're at in the process, and write a review for that part of the process, not like, you know. But yeah, it's really about support and collaboration and seeing stuff.
The Fringe has like one rule. It's called "Don't be a jerk," and that's it. But
DBAJ.
all of everything is all rules are meant to be broken. All of these things are best practices, and they're meant to be flexed upon. And while you walk out of here and write 1,000 technical elements into your show, Brandon and Corwin will give you a workshop in the spring about how to make that possible. So things are possible. It's just depending on where you look at for your venue, what types of things are happening, and we have all these panels to support that process and that journey that you're going to take. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I promise. We're really fun. So I think we should take some questions from the audience. Go ahead.
Did either of you guys try to use sound, and if so, how did that work out?
In terms of sound, you mean?
Like sound effects,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
besides microphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had Obama gave a speech about Trayvon Martin. I had that cut in throughout the whole thing on the overhead, and it was great. I kind of like breaking the illusion that we had the stage go somewhat black, and so people are just listening.
Was the technical part of that getting that smooth, difficult account?
You know, it wasn't, because I worked at 3 clubs. The venue was at 3 clubs, and that's where we were working at. And they have a really great technical support team there. I just hired their in-house tech. You can bring in your own people, but you can also hire the in-house. And I hired them. They knew the whole system. it did take a little bit, just regular, like this is when it goes down, or no, I wanted a fade, or you popped it, I want a fade, or whatever, but that is just regular tech stuff. But no, the sound for me was pretty straightforward, but I only had it in, you have pre-show music, post-show music, and then I had sort of about 4 or 5 moments throughout the show that had this speech.
And you've done sound in most of your productions.
Yes, yeah, I was really, this is my second year, I was really sound heavy. I had music, the whole thing was inspired by music, so we had it coming and going and whatever. And there was an element of anxiety towards that because you can't always control it, and if something goes on. But of course, I wanted that for that. It was a soundscape, dreamscape piece, so I really wanted it for that.
And people will do video, people will do sound, people will do costumes, but as it's kind of been talked about.
Can't do all of them all at once. Yeah, or just pick your battles.
Well, and we had, for Laertes Loves Hamlet Loves Ophelia, I wrote us for our pre-show, you can either use the one that the venue has or you can bring your own. And so I wrote us one that would be our voicemail that incorporated in the exit stuff and had all 3 characters chiming in. And so, but we just recorded that on an iPhone and gave our stage manager the file. And we also had music that was a big part of creating the feel of the show in between scenes. But teching it was pretty simple, and your stage manager was just like, okay, do we want to fade? And once you lock in how many seconds of the song is playing, it's pretty much like, great, done.
And if you wanted to do more, would you recommend hiring somebody from the venue, or would you recommend maybe working with somebody earlier, or does it kind of depend on where you're going?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you're going. I think if it's specifically a really heavy sound piece, you would want to hire someone just specifically for that and maybe put a bit of money in that. But if it's just a few songs up and down, these stage managers in the venues, they know the boards, they know the environment, they know what they're working with, so I'd just go with them. And
you can talk to your venue about this too.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Number one, you hired your own stage crew, right? You hired them, bring them in, organized it. That's correct. That's how you did that.
Well, for at least
really efficient.
Yeah, with the I think how it works for all the venues with the Broadwater at least, the stage manager you hire from that they.
That was my next question. I think most important to remember from last year. So the stage manager comes with the venue.
Yes.
Some venues.
Hire that
Most
person.
of them.
It depends.
Most of
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then when you have a show, does it stay with the same venue, or do you change venue? Do you stay at the same place?
Same venue.
If you purchase it that way.
There is actually, a couple of years ago, there was some shows that hopped from venue to venue.
That's
your
very
costs go up. Because you have to get insurance plus scheduling, and then people are like, I want to see your show, and what venue are you at?
And a lot of venues will now have blocks of when they're doing, and so it would be kind of tough to get a one-off.
Yeah. I think finding one setup.
And as far as tech crew goes, we just our 3 actors were our everything.
You're kind of like a 3-man band.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Sorry, one last question.
Yeah.
Allow me. Okay, one of the shows that we're doing has a lot of voice, and it's playing off the voice. So that would be probably bringing someone to coordinate with an in-house stage manager. How would you do this?
When you say voice, what do you mean?
Well, it was a voice. A voice speaks.
A voice speaks. Are you going to do it live? Is there going to be an actor with a
Have
microphone?
her probably the same actor, so she will actually be her.
Wow.
So
Back and forth. Yeah,
doesn't have to be overlapping.
That sounds like that might help. It might help to have someone on board very early because obviously the emotional cues and how quickly someone's going to come in. So I would say hire someone kind of early for that. But
have that person work with the in-house stage.
I would suggest that. It sounds like it's a very pivotal part. If you could probably get a microphone and do it live with another actor, that might be easier.
Well, another possibility, if you want to make it more simple in terms of the teching at the time, would be to create a file where you've already worked with the spacings of when the other voice is speaking, so it's all one. It's all one,
there you go.
and they just hit play, and the actor has worked with it enough. I think that would be the best way to simplify it.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of
Thank you.
voiceover,
Yeah.
All right, well then I have a question. What is, outside of your own show, have you seen any shows that have really stuck out technically, and why?
Oh.
It could be for their simplicity, for their complication.
One thing that I really loved was Wounded's use of a baby monitor. For anyone that saw that show, that's a.
Could you describe the show really
Yes.
quick and how
So
they use it?
Wounded, the writers Carrie Kamirowitz Trim.
Kaz.
Kaz. I know it's so. Yeah, I should know. But this is a play that's 3 people, and it's a. One of the characters is a war vet, and he came home severely disabled. So his wife her job has been full-time in-home care for this vet, and she brings someone in to help assist with that so she can go back to school. But and she's also involved with the guy that is coming in to be an in-house aide to her husband, who is now so beyond, is the question being, is he even still really with us, or is he kind of a shell in terms of the level of disability that he sustained in war? And so it's just those 3 actors, and the set was fairly simple, but also created a whole home sort of feeling. But the tech thing that they did that was so effective was the use of this baby monitor. And I think it was battery powered, they didn't need anything from the venue to have that. And I believe it seemed like their sound cues came out over the baby monitor and not over the system. But that was one of those solutions to upping your tech level that didn't take more time and more work with the venue. You could still do the quick load in with that kind of process.
I saw the Goddess's Guide,
Yeah.
the one you mentioned, and it was really beautiful because it was backlit. There was white silk backlit, so you saw the postures that they were doing, and it was very, very simple, very straightforward, minimal worry and stress, but maximum impact on stage, which was great. Yeah.
Do you want to describe what that? Because it was
Yeah.
these silks, and there was.
Yeah, so it was very tall. I would say the height of these cardboard boxes. There were 3 silks. Silks being very thin white material. They were backlit, which means that the light hit the material from behind, not from forward. And then they would have an actor standing in front of it in the light, in between the light and the silk. So the silk was still the first thing that the audience saw. And then they would make postures and movements and changes. And it was really great because when there was someone on stage speaking, it was Goddess's Guide, a Greek goddess. They would have different postures and whatnot. So it was great. It was so impactful, such a beautiful stage picture, so simply done with literally a backdrop stand and some material, and then the lights were on the floor. They had different gels on them. So there was a pink light, there was a green light, and there was I think a blue. It was dependent on the 3 women and their characters and what they wore. It was gorgeous.
And then, what about something? Have you ever seen something where there was no set, no cues, nothing like that? I know I have, and it's pretty interesting. And how's it worked for you?
I mean, sometimes it classes up the scenario in a way. One thing that comes to mind, I really love the stage pictures for A Beast of Burden.
Mm-hmm.
And they had essentially nothing on the stage. They had a projection screen that interacted with, and because A Beast of Burden was about Chris Burden, the artist.
Chris Burden, and it was a 90-minute show. And it was very successful. It won some awards and has gone on to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
Billy's going to be on our one-on-one sessions. He wrote that show. So if you're staying for the 2 o'clock sessions, he'll be one of the people kind of talking with you guys.
Yeah.
But it was, a projection. They had some few props, and there was actually, the most complicated thing they did was a gunshot.
Yes, they did. But one of the things I loved so much, too, was because there's this moment where the artist is playing with chaining himself to the ground near exposed electrical wiring and water, and there's this possibility that it could kill him, but he's just laying there for days strapped. But they created some sort of metal thing that made it look as if he was strapped down to the floor. So it's this simple prop that has created this whole environment, this whole scene. And as long as the actor didn't move his hands to show that it was just laid upon him, so there's things like that where you can go so simple, and it is a better stage picture, I think.
And one of the best things that like Corwin or Brandon has said like in our spring workshops, because this is actually a brand new workshop, we've never talked about it this early on in the writing process. So what they've said is like when you're going through and editing, instead of like having somebody make coffee by like taking a coffee pot or something like that, just have them pick up a cup somewhere. You know, instead of like going through that whole process, like it, you know, unless that is extremely relevant to what's going to happen in the scene, you can always do these little cheats. And then if you wanted to expand upon it when you're able to do it in a real house, or you're able to do it later, not in this like, somebody in the previous panel said this is a preview. This is like the preview of your show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also suggest, is it really important that they have coffee at that moment? And if it is, can that prop become something else at a later time? Does it have to always be, could it be a different type of cup that could be used in multiple different ways? Could it become something else later on? You know, I think making sure you're being really specific with your choices, rather than they sit down and they have coffee just because they've got nothing else to do, you know, I would say is the best.
Are most venues equipped for video projection?
Most. Some aren't. That's definitely a question you can ask any of the venues when you're doing it. Some might have a charge for somebody to run it. It just really depends, and that's why a lot of people will start their venue shopping very early. And we have a panel in January where you can even talk to them in person. Not all the venues are able to come to that panel, but a lot do.
And going off of that question, and also what this gentleman was saying, Kelley, when you were talking about the file, is that a QLab?
In terms of like what type of file to...
Yeah, or like a projection or putting together...
We put all of our stuff, I believe, on a flash drive, and it was just like MP3, kind of like very, very simple. And again, like if you talk to your stage manager and be like, what sort of files can you support and can you use?
A venue stage manager is very much equipped to use QLab. And that would be a great way if you have a lot of technical elements. And that's actually one of the resources that Brandon and Corwin usually harp upon.
I've used it. I use QLabs.
Okay. And is that something that you can learn, or is that something you really need someone who knows what they're doing?
You can learn it through our How to Tech Your Fringe Show thing, but if you're going to have a very complicated, if that's not your jam, then you probably don't, right? You want to pick and choose the things that are your jam to be doing.
Mm-hmm. My stage manager did all the QLabs, but we used QLabs. I've never used it myself loads of times.
And I haven't even heard of it till just now, so there's that.
Like it's kind of been harped upon, it's like people tend to find out what they are best at and ask others around them to do the things that they might not be the best at.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other questions about anything that's not related to tech? It can be related to anything.
Just to speak with you, since I know you're like a coordinator. So I had signed up for my show to be on there, and I got an email. I can't remember the guy's name. He mentioned that he would probably be here today.
Dave McKeever?
I think it may be me.
What's
Matthew
your
Quinn?
name? Huh?
Matthew Quinn?
Yes, you, Matthew.
That's it. You found me.
I
I
came
was
on
right here
your
behind
email.
you.
I'm like, I just know damn well I did not delete that email, because whatever class that you have, I wanted to like sign up and pay for the class, but I couldn't find the same. I'm like, but there were other things in that particular email that was bugging me that I could not find. See, look.
Well, we'll connect. Yeah. Can I do Alan, can I make you a small pitch?
Yep.
Hey guys, for some of you who already saw me, my name is Matthew Quinn. I'm a venue manager and also a producer. I've been with Fringe since year 1. Most of the stuff is on my website, theaterasylum.com, theater spelled E-R. I teach a workshop how to produce a Hollywood Fringe show. I do once, twice a month. This year we're also expanding. We're going to have classes on how to direct a Fringe show, how to market yourself in social media, how to develop a solo show. There's also a lot of various groups putting out workshops on meeting the press, how to pitch a show. So it's a really great time to go out and really kind of knowledge yourself 7 months before Fringe. Fringe will give you so much information. And
it's all online.
What's that?
And it's all online.
And it's all online. Also, I pitch for they have on YouTube. Fringe has a YouTube channel with all of these panels. I think this is probably going to go on YouTube. So it's wonderful information. I do consulting. I'm around to answer your questions. Come up, grab a card. Love to meet you, hear about your shows. And, well, guys, this is great. 7 months. Listen to these awesome people up here. They know what they're doing.